Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, known to many of us as a figure of rage and being simply too angry to die, a god drenched in blood that ruthlessly kills through violence and the embodiment of vengeance. To me, the lore of Kratos stems in anger, but is actually an epic of consequence, fear, and transformation. When violence is the only output a person has, the toll is high and will always be paid in full. What cost must be paid for the language of fury being used for a lifetime? Across at least 3 paracosms, Kratos has sought for silence and relief from his past that haunts him. These memories have never left him. They are with him in every sense of the word, down to the minutiae of being bonded with his very skin as a cursed reminder. Welcome to the Athenaeum of Lore, a growing archive of curated myths, legends, and lore from the known and sometimes unknown fictional universe. In this entry, we examine Kratos, the central figure from the God of War series, discussing his existence from a revered Spartan general to god to something far more complex. Whilst this entry will detail some key aspects in the life of Kratos, this is not a linear retelling. It is a study of the myth, trauma, transformation, and whether Kratos, an individual forged in violence, can overcome his greatest challenges. Before he was hailed the god of war, Kratos lived as a fatherless mortal from Sparta. He had a young brother, Deimos. Like all Spartan boys, training, fighting and winning were bred into their mind. Still today, when we hear someone described as a Spartan, it sparks an image of an imposing warrior. Their life would have been brutal and aggressive, living in a constant state of striving to be the best in all they do. Strength was valued beyond all measure. To be merciful was to be weak. Weakness leads to hesitation, and death soon followed all the afflicted. In a life where one misstep could mean the death of yourself and those who rely on you, victory was not simply encouraged through boyhood, it was demanded. After the great war between the gods and titans of Greece, a prophecy was foretold that a marked child would be the destruction of Olympus. I would understand if many of you by default imagined this to be Kratos, but it was in fact Deimos, his brother, who bore the famous marking from birth. The blazoned red mark streaked across his face and body that we all know so well. During a usual evening of training for the young warriors, Ares and Athena lay siege to Sparta and kidnapped Deimos in an attempt to defy the fulfillment of the prophecy. In the midst of the chaos, as Deimos calls to Kratos for help, even as a boy he lunged at his unknown attackers, but could not protect his brother from his fate, being scarred in the process over his right eye. Deimos is taken and enslaved into an eternity of torture at the hands of Thanatos, the god of death. Kratos does not mourn for his brother presumed dead, but buries his survivor's guilt under the rage of self-blame. He channels this hate that would serve him so well during his training, and puts all of his focus into ensuring he does not fail again. As a tribute to his brother, he tattoos his body with the same red markings that Deimos had, thus the prophecy of the marked child lives on. The young Kratos grew into a supremely effective Spartan commander. He would lead countless soldiers, earning victory after victory, and become known as a legendary warlord. His lust for dominance grew during his time in the Spartan army. He was a vicious opponent, often conquering with brutality, hate, violence, all growing deeper into his being, but never forgetting his failure to Deimos. Glory only satiated him briefly. The fear of weakness remained, no matter how aggressive he became. In a fateful battle, Kratos and his legions were at the brink of defeat from the great barbarian militia. His tactics had all failed, for the barbarians numbered too great. For what felt like an eternity, but was only a moment, desperation consumed him. The same desperation he felt when Deimos was taken. the familiar fear of failure gripping his mind. Kratos calls to Ares, the god of war, not in devotion for his god, but in terror for himself, as the barbarian commander raises his warhammer to strike Kratos down. Ares answered his cries swiftly. In absolution, Ares decimates the barbarian horde and imbues Kratos with a godly gift, the blades of chaos. Kratos beheads Ulrich, the great chief, with the blades, and his fear dissipates. The glee of power now consumes Kratos as he is groomed into becoming the perfect weapon. The blades themselves personified the servitude Kratos now owes Ares, chains burned and bound into his skin forevermore. Kratos sacked cities and temples through Ares' bidding, eroding the remnants of morality that remained inside him. More and more blocks to build on top of his fears and perceived weakness hiding within. The feeling of glory waning with each operation, he conducted raids through Ares' will with no hesitation, often slaughtering the innocent merely because they were in the way. His obedience to his captor turned him into a ruthless tool of death. Ares ordered a raid on a small village temple dedicated to Athena, leading to Kratos blindly slaughtering all the inhabitants in a bloodlusted fury. An oracle steps between the Spartan and the temple, warning of the dangers inside, but Kratos brushes her aside without a second thought. He massacres all in the temple, hoping for moments to feel the lift of glory he yearns for. The dust settles, and among the dead lying at his feet were Lysandra and Calliope, his wife and daughter. Their blood soaked his hands. The broken warrior falls to his knees. A metaphorical third body lies in death that night, the version of Kratos who believed he deserves a loving family. Unknown to Kratos, Ares had transported his family from Sparta to the temple to remove any and all ties Kratos had to happiness and sanity, hoping to make him the perfect killer. The oracle finds Kratos screaming in anger for the betrayal and trickery. She curses Kratos to wear the ashes of his slain wife and child. So from this moment forward, all will know of the monster and his wicked deeds. The reminder of his failures to his family etched into his skin. Kratos is given a new title, a wretched title that when uttered sparked detest and an aversion to accept any help from its bearer. Kratos had become the ghost of Sparta. As Kratos bellows in anger, his grief and disgust in himself unbearable, but only knowing to replace it with the emotion he hides in, unrelenting rage, he embarks on a fruitless journey, leading to the killing of the Furies and their monster, the Hecatoncheires. The ties that bound Kratos to Ares were no mere pact. It was a blood oath. In what appears to be an act of pity, Kratos kills Orcos, the Oath Keeper, and finally is free to kill the god he once served. In doing so, the other gods zeroed in on the Anguish warlord. Each whim of the gods is adhered to, Kratos' bloodlust so great for Ares that once again he serves in blindness. After some time, the gods send Kratos to discover why the sun has fallen from the sky. He discovers a plot by Persephone and Atlas to destroy Olympus. This journey leads him to the Elysium fields, where he is reunited with his daughter Calliope. For the first time since that fateful night in the Temple of Athena, Kratos feels the embrace of his daughter. Along with the rage that burns within him, his weapons disappear, symbolising a life for Kratos where no more is he an instrument of death, but once again a father. This peace is stripped from him when the gods reveal the truth. If Kratos remains in Elysium, Persephone's plan will succeed and the world will be destroyed along with Elysium. The gods force him into an impossible choice, manipulating his sense of duty and guilt to fit their own fear-driven narrative. They make Kratos believe that to save Calliope, he must abandon her. He screams as he pries his daughter away from his side. The scream we hear is soaked in severe emotional pain. Once again, he leaves Calliope behind. His daughter cries for her father burning into his mind. The sickness of depression weighing heavy, and Persephone stopped. Kratos returns to his indentured servitude. For 10 long years, Kratos served the gods of Olympus on the glimmer of hope that they can relieve his nightmares. It seems to me that Kratos is not asking for a pardon. He only asks for the vision to stop. The gods never actually promise Kratos this peace. They only promise forgiveness. Athena tasks Kratos to one final toil: destroy the power-hungry Ares. To kill the god, Kratos finds Pandora's box. His desire for vengeance against Ares looming over him and pushing him through the challenges of the journey. The gods only offering help when it suits them, a tactic that reinforces Kratos' will to serve them. Ares becomes aware of the box and kills Kratos from a distant land, or so he thought. Kratos climbs out of the depths of the underworld and strikes down the mighty Ares, finally getting his revenge. He turns to the gods to save him from his memories, but no reprieve is offered, only the forgiveness of his sins. This moment finally reveals the true nature of the gods. Whilst they never lied, they exploited ambiguity. By allowing Kratos to believe that forgiveness meant peace of mind, they ensured his obedience. Once Ares is dead and no longer a threat to Olympus, Kratos' pain ceases to matter to them. For the first time, Kratos understands that the gods do not seek justice or redemption. They seek control. Resigning himself, used and abandoned, he throws himself from the highest cliff in Greece, an act of penultimate self-destruction, wishing death will give him the peace the gods so cruelly denied him. Even this is robbed from him. Athena stops his suicide and elevates him to godhood to assume the place of Ares in Olympus. When Kratos was a boy, he and Deimos probably saw this as an unreachable pinnacle of honour. Now it is simply another betrayal. Kratos is forced to live forever, bound to the very gods who exploited his suffering. His final reward: eternal service, ensuring that his memories continue, never allowed to die, never allowed to forget. Kratos is the god of war. The memories and hallucinations have not only persisted, they've grown over time. Kratos now sees his mother, Callisto, and flashes of a brother he barely remembers. His life up to this point being filled with trauma, with only enough mental capacity for the latest horrendous visions. As a god, Kratos has time to think, wait, and dream. In these moments, the visions consume him. His mother and brother were gone in some way, but their suffering continued. The embers of painful anger would grow once more. Kratos goes to Atlantis to find his mother, where he learns the truth about the prophecy of the marked child. Their reunion shows him with signs of relief and tenderness, one of the few moments where we see actual vulnerability. Callisto confirms that the visions are real. Deimos is trapped in the domain of death, and that his family's suffering did not end with their separation. As Kratos presses for the truth about his past and Deimos, Callisto tries to reveal more, including the identity of Kratos' father. However, a curse had been placed on her to prevent this knowledge from being spoken. The moment she attempts to reveal it, she is transformed into a monstrous beast. In what seems like an unending path of torment from the gods, Kratos is left holding his mother's body. Another member of his family lays in death by his own hands. Yet again, a broken Kratos journeys forwards in hopes to find his last remaining kin. Kratos eventually finds Deimos alive, but after years of torture by Thanatos, the god of death, he is a shell of a man. Their reunion is emotional and painful. Deimos is bitter, resentful, and scared, blaming Kratos for never saving him. These words from Deimos would have cut Kratos deep, only confirming what he believed of himself. After a vicious battle, and for only a moment, there is a shimmer of brotherly reunion. Once more, the two warriors are fighting side by side against Thanatos. This is likely only the second time Kratos has felt true hope, with the first being sharing Elysium with Calliope. That hope is also destroyed when Thanatos strikes Deimos down. The memories of Deimos being taken as a boy will have seared into his eyes. He saves his brother only long enough to lose him again. Whilst Deimos dies as a free man, Kratos denies himself that small victory, only seeing that no matter what he does, everything is taken from him. Athena tries to turn this horrendous moment into an almost celebratory event. She claims that with his final ties to humanity severed, he can now truly serve as the god of war. This would be a turning point in the Greek saga of Kratos' life. He finally snaps from being the subject of the god's cruel jokes. Just like he vowed vengeance on Ares, he proclaims that the gods will pay for this. All love, happiness and joy stripped from him, trapped in a sarcophagus of bitterness, he plots to campaign against Olympus. Kratos has been conquering Greece as a merciless and reckless god for some time. The next city he points the Spartan spear towards is Rhodes. He sacks the land, brutally ordering its destruction in his name. The other gods are silent, observing, growing weary and concerned with the new Olympian. Kratos cares not for their thoughts, nor mortal lives anymore. Despite his once perceived humanity, now they are simply a casualty of war. With nothing left to live for, Kratos embodies hate, and devastation is his lustful outlet. After a battle with the Colossus of Rhodes, Zeus rips the godly power from within Kratos and murders him, presenting himself as the divine ruler who restores order to the world. He says to Kratos, as the Spartan takes his dying breaths, that the cycle ends here. Whilst at present Kratos would believe this to be about his own conquest to destroy the gods, this instead would become a statement that remains inside Kratos' mind for eons. Zeus's betrayal is sudden and finite, but Kratos again survives the underworld, this time through the intervention of the Titan Gaia. She reveals a deeper truth regarding how Zeus wished death upon his father Kronos. This interfamilial murder is commonplace amongst many mythologies throughout the world, which seems to be a recurring theme in the Spartan's life. Gaia tells Kratos to seek the Sisters of Fate, as this is the only way to change his destiny once foretold. After Kratos predictably kills the Sisters of Fate, he travels back in time to confront Zeus once more. Rage boiling within, seeking vindication for his struggles, and now free from the bonds of fate, he nearly succeeds. Finally, the righteous victory he feels owed. However, Athena intervenes, placing herself between the warriors and receives a deadly blow. As she dies, she tries to reason with Kratos, claiming Zeus acted only to protect Olympus, still passing blame onto Kratos, trying to convince him his suffering was a necessary evil. The justification of it all? Kratos is Zeus's son. At Athena's death, the king of Olympus escapes in fear to rally the other gods against his enemies. Being the seasoned tactician he is, Kratos knows his father will be regrouping and uses the Fate's power to travel back in time again and bring the Titans from the Great War back to the present. They climb Mount Olympus as Kratos calls to his father in confident authority that he brings death and destruction. Astride with a self-centered Gaia, Zeus knocks Kratos down into the underworld once more. A higher spirit form of Athena calls to Kratos, telling him that she will support his cause and offer her help in his conquest against Olympus for humanity. Kratos questions her allegiance, but heeds her all the same. Under her instruction, he searches for the divine flame of Olympus. As he searches, he finds statues in tribute to the daughter of Hephaestus, Pandora. In echoes, she calls out, "Father," as Kratos approaches, which causes a brief moment of grief and forces memories of Calliope into his mind once more. Pandora is kind, curious and innocent, a mirror image of how Kratos remembers his child. She asks him to free her, but Kratos covers his emotion with anger that pretends to be purpose and moves forward in his search. The quest for freedom is a heavy burden. True to his word, Kratos methodically murders the Greek pantheon, his violence reaching new heights and the consequences bearing no part of the equation in his fractured mind. Every single divine death releasing cataclysms across Greece. The deicide of Poseidon demonstrates an unhinged Kratos. There was no reprieve for the god of the seas, as he was continuously beaten, broken, blinded, and viciously murdered by the ghost of Sparta. This was Kratos sending a message to the other Olympians that their time was over and Poseidon's fate awaited them all. His war against the gods is inevitable, and in his mind, nothing will stop him. He has already died multiple times and returned from the underworld, so his crusade continues as death has not earned him yet. One by one, they all will fall. Poseidon's death drowns the world. The souls of the dead spill free from killing Hades. The decapitation of Helios causes darkness to consume the sky. Hermes' fall brings plagues and disease, and the very land itself withers at the loss of Hera. Each god's death is not a victory, but a vengeful catastrophe. Kratos has come to know the gods' cruelty all too well, but they were also pillars of existence that held the world from chaos. As Kratos tears them down, he shows utter disregard as the world collapses with them. A broken man enacting his revenge, one which we all could relate to. He finds the flame of Olympus shrouding a familiarity, Pandora's box. In a revelation, Athena tells Kratos that when he opened the box to kill Ares, he released fear, greed and hate into the world, and tells him that sacrificing Pandora is the key to extinguishing the flames. Kratos believes a simple child will not trouble him, and ventures to release Pandora from her binds. Kratos frees Pandora, and as they travel together, her innocence and curiosity begin to affect him. She asks childlike questions about hope, fear, and why Kratos is so angry. He slowly softens around her. He feels a forgotten sway of fatherhood long thought lost. This bond deepens when it's revealed that Pandora must die to extinguish the flame of Olympus. He barks in his refusal to accept this. This moment marks the first time he actively tries to stop someone he cares about from sacrificing themselves, even though it blocks his all-consuming path to Zeus. To put this into a blunt perspective, this is the very first time that he no longer believes vengeance is worth the death of an innocent life. Pandora ultimately does choose to sacrifice herself, releasing the power needed to defeat Zeus. Kratos attempts to stop her, but fails, once again unable to save a child he's grown to care for. Her death devastates him, but it also changes him. It forces him to face the cost of his actions and the cycle of loss that follows him. His deathly rage unbound. His screams echo in painful murderous intent as Zeus mocks his failure as Pandora's box lies open and empty. After an ultimate battle between father and son that rips the very fabric of Greece, Kratos is victorious, but only physically. As Zeus's husk lies shattered, his callous spirit awakens, trapping Kratos into a nightmare of his failures. Every memory a reminder of the losses and cruelty he has endured and performed. His mind descending into madness, a spectral Pandora begins to guide him back to sanity, to hope. Hope is all we fight with when all else is lost. Reignited with power, he breaks free from his psychological prison and forces Zeus's soul back into its carcass. Once more into the fray they throw. He savagely beats his father in an unending torrent, every ounce of his strength poured into each attack. Broken, bloodied, and defied, Zeus, the god king of Olympus, is dead. Athena congratulates the Spartan and offers him the truth. When Kratos first opened Pandora's box many years ago, he released not only fear, greed and hate, but also hope. She demands the power back, but Kratos denies her. He cannot place his trust in another god. He reflects on his own life. He sickens himself as he remembers his tale of blood-soaked hate. In this solitude of hatred, he takes his own life. One final act that will give something back instead of taking something away. I believe he does not do this for redemption, but he does this to give the power of hope back to humanity, because any god does not deserve such control. Ultimately, he chooses to rid the world of the gods and his own wicked self. This is a changed Kratos that offers a sacrifice in service to humanity. The Greek pantheon is wiped from the world. A trail of blood at the cliffed edge of Olympus lies in place of Kratos' missing body. The Greek saga of Kratos, to me, ultimately represents finally breaking the cycle of divine cruelty and his manipulation. Rather than continuing the pattern of gods ruling through fear and power, he chooses to remove them and himself from the choice entirely. His suicide is not an atonement for the destruction he caused, but a renouncement of the Olympians, his godhood, and the choices which led him there. Thank you for listening to this lore entry on the Greek saga of Kratos. If you'd like to explore further entries to the Athenaeum of Lore, you'll find additional records on the channel, with more coming in the near future. Check back soon for the second and final entry regarding the god of war. Until next time, the Athenaeum remains open.